discretion advised. This is 10-Minute Murder.
In February of 2010, the McStay family's relatives were becoming more and more worried. No one had heard from the McStays since the 4th of February, when the family's father, 40-year-old Joseph, tried to call one of his business associates at about 8:30 p.m. It was outside the normal business hours, and the associate, Charles Merritt, later said that he was busy watching a movie, meaning that Joseph's call had gone straight to his voicemail. Joseph McStay lived in Fallbrook, a California community with a population of about 30,000 people. He and his wife, 43-year-old Summer, had 2 sons, 3-year-old Joseph Jr. and 4-year-old Gianni. Both of the McStay parents had successful careers, with Summer working in real estate and Joseph owning a company that produced a range of decorative fountains. Both Joseph and Summer were close with their family, and it wasn't like them to stop communicating without any explanation. Even if they were busy or not feeling well, they always kept in touch. So after a week of trying to contact Joseph and Summer without any response, Joseph's brother, Michael, drove to their house. When nobody came to the door, Michael went around the back. He saw an open window, which he used to get inside the house. Even with both of the family dogs still in the yard, there were no signs of Joseph, Summer, or the children inside the house. 2 days later, Michael called the San Diego County Sheriff's Department and officially reported the family as missing. Officers requested a search warrant to allow them to search the house, which was executed another 4 days later, on the 19th of February. The initial search of the house didn't reveal anything that officers found especially alarming. It was tidy and clean, without any signs that the family had been harmed. However, it was clear that the McStays had left home without much warning. There were 2 small bowls of popcorn still on the couch, as if the children had been watching a movie there. The family's car, a 1996 Isuzu Trooper, was located. It had been left in the parking lot of a strip mall close to the Mexican border, and on the 8th of February, it was towed away. However, the car was only believed to have been in that parking lot for around an hour and a half, and there were no clues as to where the car had been during the previous 4 days, when the McStays had already been missing. The car being abandoned by the Mexican border added to the speculation that the family had left home willingly. Investigators found multiple searches on Joseph and Summer's computers about learning to speak Spanish, as well as a Google search that asked, "What documents do children need for traveling to Mexico?" Painstakingly, the police looked through hours of footage of people crossing the border into Mexico, and finally found surveillance of a family of 4 crossing the border on the 8th of February, at around the same time the car was towed. Although they couldn't confirm the identity of the 4 people in the video, investigators believed that they had a strong resemblance to the McStay family. In April of 2013, after the McStays had been missing for more than 3 years, the Sheriff's Department released a statement saying that they had a reason to believe that the missing family had voluntarily left the country. Several tips came in from people who believed that they had seen the McStays in Mexico, although none of the sightings were ever confirmed. Despite the authorities believing in this theory, the family's relatives were not convinced. They didn't believe that Joseph and Summer would voluntarily bring the kids to Mexico because they had been too worried about the dangers of the country's drug wars. According to Summer's sister, her passport had also expired at the time she disappeared. Financially, the theory that the McStays had simply traveled to Mexico didn't make sense. Although Joseph and Summer's bank accounts held a combined total of more than $100,000, neither of them had made any large withdrawals in the time before they went missing. In fact, after February 4th, their bank accounts were never used again. Despite the widespread theory that the McStays had left voluntarily, the investigation uncovered that the family had an astonishing number of enemies. Joseph's ex-wife's new husband, for example, was a violent man who had threatened to beat Joseph up. Summer's ex-boyfriend had emailed her only a few months before her disappearance, telling her, quote, "I will love you forever." This ex, by the way, also had a history of threatening behavior towards others. One of Joseph's business associates had sent him threatening messages telling him that he would ruin his business. But despite all of these threats, there was absolutely no evidence that any of these people had been involved in the family's disappearance. There was one more person who came under suspicion in the case: Charles Merritt, the business associate whom Joseph had tried to call on February 4th. Charles, who was known by the nickname Chase, was the last person who had seen or heard from the McStay family. Eventually, in 2013, Chase also revealed that he had visited Joseph on the same day, and the two of them had spent more than an hour together. The suspicion surrounding Chase Merritt was amplified by the fact that he had a criminal record. In fact, he had been convicted on several felonies for burglary. One of Chase's friends spoke to the media about the McStay case, saying, quote, "I think the police should look at him and anyone associated with him." Based on Chase's behavior in the police interviews, it was clear that he did not believe the theory that the McStays were alive and well in Mexico. Only 2 weeks after the family went missing, Chase told a detective, "Joseph was my best friend." With no evidence that the McStays had been harmed, Chase was already referring to them in the past tense. When Joseph's father, Patrick, was asked whether he believed that Chase was involved in the case, he responded, "I have to have faith in Chase because I have faith in my son. I believe that Joseph trusted Chase, and I believed in Chase. Do I think Chase is involved? I don't think so, and I truly hope not." On the 11th of November 2013, a motorcyclist was riding through the Mojave Desert when he saw what he believed to be human remains. The police arrived at the scene and found 2 shallow graves, which contained 4 sets of skeletal remains, including the skeletons of 2 young children. One of the children had a length of electrical cord wrapped around their neck, and the other one had been hit in the head with a heavy object at least 7 times. Within a few days, the adult skeletons were identified with dental records. They belonged to Joseph and Summer McStay. DNA testing was used to confirm the identities of the 2 smaller skeletons as 4-year-old Gianni and 3-year-old Joseph Jr. Summer and the 2 children had all been buried in the same grave, while the killer had dug a separate grave for Joseph. All 4 victims had died of blunt force trauma, and the murder weapon was believed to be a sledgehammer, which had been buried alongside the bodies. Later, investigators revealed that they believed the McStays had been tortured shortly before their deaths. Almost exactly 1 year later, Chase Merritt was arrested for the murders of the McStay family after forensic testing revealed that his DNA had been found on the steering wheel of their abandoned vehicle. Investigators believed that Chase had been the one to drive the car to the parking lot where it was later found, and his cell phone location data also revealed that he had been at the McStay burial site a few days later. Chase's trial was repeatedly delayed because he kept firing each of his attorneys or trying to represent himself at his own murder trial. 3 years later, he'd gone through a total of 5 different attorneys, and finally, the McStay family murder case went to trial in January of 2019. The prosecution alleged that the motive for the murders had been financial. They stated that Chase had an addiction to gambling and that after the family disappeared, he had used Joseph's business account to write checks worth more than $20,000, which he had then used to gamble even more. He had backdated the checks, trying to make it appear as if Joseph had written them before he vanished, when in reality, they had been written after Joseph was already dead. The jury found Chase guilty of killing all 4 members of the McStay family and recommended that he face the death penalty. Patrick McStay, who had tried to believe that Chase was trustworthy, agreed with the verdict. "He's a scumbag. He's a creep. He doesn't deserve to walk the earth or take a breath," Patrick said. "He killed somebody that trusted him and gave him a chance, when a lot of other people knew he was a crook, and then he killed my grandsons brutally. How do you do that?" That is 10 Minute Murder for today. Brief and bingeable true crime. My name is Joe. I'm the host, and I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to my podcast today. A special thank you and welcome to any new listeners that are checking it out for the first time today. If you would, please stand up and make yourself known so the rest of us can introduce ourselves to you. Isn't that the worst part of church? If you're a new person at a church and they embarrass you in front of everyone, yeah, go ahead and stand up in front of all these people that you don't know. Let's shine the spotlight right on you. It's an introvert's nightmare. Anyway, if you're new to 10-Minute Murder, don't stand up. Just keep sitting down. But do make sure you subscribe to 10-Minute Murder wherever you're listening to this right now. Being a subscriber more easily helps you catch up on all the back episodes and not miss any of the new episodes. Connect with the podcast on social media. You'll see the pictures and the places and the faces of the topics that we're talking about here in the podcast. Never gross and graphic stuff. And also, it's not just that. On the social media pages, you'll know when the new episodes come out because I post that. And then I also post true crime news, like different things that are happening in the true crime world. I'll throw that up there as well. And if you happen to like this episode, this podcast in general, make sure you leave a rating and review on Apple, Spotify, Audible, any place that you can do that. And somehow, I don't know, maybe it's magic. I don't know how it works, but the algorithm of the internet, if you leave that positive feedback, other people can then see that and they'll know, hey, this is a cool podcast. This is something that people like to listen to. Maybe I'll check it out as well. And it kind of funnels it to more and more people, I think. Maybe it doesn't do that. That could be in my head. Anyway, I do appreciate reading your positive feedback nonetheless. If all of that was too much to gather, I've got a website, 10minutemurder.com. You can go there for all the things. All right, that's going to do it. That's another 10-Minute Murder podcast episode. I will see you on the next one. Goodbye.